Welcome to Morganable, where we serve you with authentic news, stories, documentaries, updates, and magazine-style insights on our society and the larger world, and more importantly, about places that fall under the radar of the mainstream media machinery. We invite you to embark on this exciting journey of enlightenment with us. Morganable, your vehicle of enlightenment.
Nigerians are ready for democracy. Nigeria have elected their president, and Nigerians are not prepared to go for another election. The truth of the matter is that we do not have two sunrises in one day.
After years of waiting, Nigeria finally picked the day for presidential elections, June 12, 1993. It was supposed to mark the end of military rule and the beginning of real democracy. The election came after many broken promises and several failed attempts at transition to civilian government. Two political parties had been approved by the military government to contest. One was the Social Democratic Party (SDP) and the other was the National Republican Convention (NRC). Representing the SDP was Moshood Kashimawo Olawale Abiola, also called M.K.O. Abiola. He was a well-known businessman, very wealthy, but also very generous. Many Nigerians remember him for helping the poor, sponsoring students, donating to communities, and supporting many people without asking for anything in return. He wasn't just popular because of money, he was respected. People believed he was someone who understood their pain and would fight for them. His campaign slogan was Hope 93. That message of hope connected with Nigerians who were tired of hunger, unemployment, bad road, no power, and no freedom. The NRC candidate was Bashir Tofa, a businessman from Kano. While he had his supporters, he was not as well known or as loved across the country as Abiola. Then something unusual happened. M.K.O. Abiola picked Baba Gana Kingibe, another Muslim, as his running mate. Normally, politicians in Nigeria try to balance religion and ethnicity to these different groups, but this was a Muslim ticket. The people feared it might cause tension. Surprisingly, it did not. Instead of division, something beautiful happened. Nigerians ignored tribe and religion. Muslims and Christians voted. Northerners and Southerners voted. Hausa, Yoruba, Igbo, Ijaw, Tiv, Kanuri, Afe all came together. When the election took place, observers said it was the most peaceful and organized vote Nigeria had ever seen. There were no major cases of violence, no ballot box snatching, and no voter intimidation. When the votes started coming in, the results were clear. M.K.O. Abiola had won the election by a wide margin. He got over 58% of the total vote. That means out of every 100 people who voted, more than 58 chose him. He also won in 19 out of the 30 states in the country as at then, including some states in the far north, where people normally did not vote for candidates from the southwest. In places like Kano, Sokoto, Borno, and Bauchi, he defeated his opponents in his own region. That had never happened before in Nigerian politics. The election gave Nigerians something they had never experienced in this level: true unity. For once, it didn't matter where you came from or what language you spoke. The people voted based on who they trusted to make life better. It was a shining moment in Nigeria's history, a rare time when the whole country seemed to agree on something good. But just as the people were beginning to celebrate, the unthinkable happened. After the June 12, 1993 election, there was joy across Nigeria. People were celebrating not with noise or dancing, but with quiet confidence. They believed that finally Nigeria had done something great, something right. They believed that their suffering under military rule was about to end. The election had been peaceful, it was ordinary, it gave people hope, and most importantly, Nigerians came together as one. It did not matter if you were Igbo, Hausa, Yoruba, Ijaw, Tiv, or Efe. It did not matter if you were Christian or Muslim. For once, the people chose unity. M.K.O. Abiola was the man people had chosen to lead them, and not by a small margin. He was leading by far. He had won votes in nearly every region, including places where no one expected him to win. But then, something strange started happening. As election results were coming in, the government suddenly stopped the counting. No one understood why. The election had gone well. There had been no violence. The people were calm, but the military regime didn't didn't release the full results. For days, Nigerians waited, confused. Journalists asked questions. Political leaders were silent. Everyone wanted to know what was going on. Why it took so long. Then, on June 23, 1993, the military government under General Ibrahim Babangida made a shocking announcement. The presidential election was annulled.
It is true that the presidential election was generally seen to be free, fair, and peaceful. However, there was in fact a huge array of electoral practices virtually in all the states of the Federation before the actual voting began.
Shocking announcement. The presidential election was annulled, cancelled. That's one word, annulled. Broke the heart of a nation. Babangida and his government gave excuses. They said there were problems with election process. They mentioned court cases, security threats, and electoral irregularities. But most people didn't believe these excuses. International observers, Nigerian civil society groups, and the ordinary people who voted all agreed the election was free and fair. So what was the real reason it was annulled? Many believe the military simply did not want to hand over power, especially to M.K.O. Abiola. Some powerful figures were afraid of losing their influence. Others feared that a man like Abiola, with so much support and goodwill, would shake the system too much. The moment the annulment was announced, protests broke out everywhere in Lagos, Ibadan, Kaduna, Onitsha, Jos, Kano, and even small towns and villages. People came out to the streets. They were angry. They were disappointed. They felt cheated. Civil society groups, students' unions, journalists, market women, bus drivers, teachers, they all spoke up. For many, this was the last straw. But the military responded in the way it often did, with force. Protesters were beaten, tear gassed, and even shot. Some people died. Others were arrested and thrown into prison. Some newspapers were shut down for speaking the truth. Many activists had to flee or go underground. That one decision set Nigeria back by many years. It created anger, it caused distrust, and it showed clearly that even when the people do the right thing, those in power can still silence them. Until today, many Nigerians still feel the pain of that day. They remember where they were when they heard the news. They remember the shock, the silence, and tears. Let's quickly talk about M.K.O. Abiola, the martyr. Moshood Kashimawo Olawale Abiola was born on August 24, 1937 in Abeokuta, Ogun State, Nigeria. He completed his primary and secondary education locally before traveling abroad for further studies. Abiola attended Abeokuta Grammar School and later earned a degree in business administration from the University of Lagos. He also studied at the Northwestern Polytechnic in London and took courses in the United States. After his education, Abiola entered the business world and became one of Nigeria's most successful entrepreneurs. He invested in various sectors, including telecommunications, publishing, imports, exports, and agriculture. His companies included Abiola Farms and Abiola Telecommunications Limited. Over the years, he built a substantial fortune and became a prominent figure in Nigerian business circles. Aside from business, Abiola was active in philanthropy. He sponsored numerous scholarships for students across Nigeria and supported community development projects such as schools, clinics, and markets. He was also involved in cultural and religious organizations, holding titles in traditional institutions. In the early 1990s, Abiola entered politics. He became a member of the Social Democratic Party (SDP) during the military's transition program towards civilian rule. The SDP was one of two government-created political parties allowed to participate in the 1993 elections. Abiola won the SDP presidential nomination and campaigned extensively across Nigeria. His campaign emphasized national unity and democratic governance. On June 12, 1993, he was widely reported to have won the presidential election by a significant margin, securing over 58% of the votes and winning the majority of Nigerian states. After the election was annulled by the military government under General Ibrahim Babangida, Abiola refused to accept the consolation of the poll. On June 11, 1994, he publicly declared himself the lawful president of Nigeria.
It is incredible. In view of all this, I found the conclusion unfortunate but inescapable that the federal military government is guilty of bad faith, pure and simple. No one has accused me of any offense against any non-electoral law or regulation. The people of this country went to polls on Saturday, June 12, 1993, and without let or hindrance chose me as their president. Didn't they?
This action led to his arrest by the military government headed by General Sani Abacha. Abiola was detained without trial, initially held at the Kirikiri prison in Lagos. During his incarceration, he was subjected to limited visitation rights and restricted communication with the outside world. Efforts by local and international human rights organizations called for his release, citing violations of due process and human rights. Throughout his detention, Abiola's health reportedly deteriorated. However, official statements about his condition were inconsistent and independent verification was difficult due to restrictions on access. On July 7, 1998, Abiola gave up the ghost intention. According to official reports, he suffered a fatal heart attack during a meeting with U.S. diplomats. There was no independent autopsy, and some details about his death remain unclear. His death occurred just months before Nigeria transitioned from military to civilian rule in 1999. Abiola's detention and death attracted significant domestic and international attention. His case became a focal point for discussions on democracy, human rights, and the rule of law in Nigeria during a period of prolonged military rule. In the years following his death, the Nigerian government and several states have honored his legacy through public memorials, renaming streets and institutions, and officially recognizing June 12 as Democracy Day. Recently, during an interview, Major Hamza Al-Mustafa, who was allegedly framed for the death of Kudirat Abiola, has come out with a fresh interview in which he talks about the statesman's death and the forces which he believed played a part in it. Mustafa was a key personality during the Abacha military rule in Nigeria. He revealed that those whom he believed killed Abiola went out to share money for a job well done. He claimed that some leaders of the National Democratic Coalition, (DemocracyDay), went to Aso Rock to collect millions of dollars from the head of state barely 24 hours after Abiola's death. Mustafa also gave some details on Abiola's death, including the fact that he died in Aguda House after taking a cup of.
We should be looking at the larger issues. The question is, why should M.K.O Abiola be killed? And why should they be angry because I'm asking these questions? They should support me to uncover that first. Why? And they know the people. They shared money. Those who killed him shared money. I don't share money. So they are defending those who killed him, and they are attacking me because I have no money to share. I said it in the year 2001 at a Puta panel. Until this very moment, nobody challenged me until these few things that are coming up lately. In the year 2001, maybe people have forgotten. I know it's a long time now. I said it at a Puta panel. I tendered a tape. I tendered a document. The document that led to the withdrawal of money from Central Bank and the fictitious reasons given for the withdrawal of that money. That money was not meant for what it was written. Late Chief M.K.O Abiola was killed on the 8th of July. On the 9th, a letter was already taken to Central Bank, giving directives to the governor of Central Bank that time to release funds as stated, signed by the president. Hundreds of millions of dollars. It's in that document. It's a public document. The Oputa panel has it. In the court, I tendered it. And I have my reasons for tendering it. Just to avoid people who will sit down and support those who came destroying this country. And that's why I tendered them, so that the documents and the evidence of videotape can speak for me, even without me saying anything.
Where did this money go to?
Shared to people.
Which people?
The people that came fighting for late Chief M.K.O Abiola. Let me tell you what happened for you to know an example. Opadokun, who is busy abusing me right now, who claimed he never been to Abuja, on the 9th in the morning, an aircraft, presidential aircraft, was sent to pick him to the villa. And that is the same time this money was brought from Central Bank. And one may ask, where were you at that time? Because General Abacha had died and you were supposed to have left the villa. I was still in the villa handing over I left the villa on the 31st of July that same year. So on the 8th, I was very much around. I had not finished handing over the villa because there were about 3 offices for me to hand over to the then new head of state. The office of CGS, there was nobody, and then there were custody of many things. The office of NSA, there were some other things that we had to introduce to the president, to the head of state then. At that material time, they came furious, coming to fight government over the murder of late Chief M.K.O. Abiola. That was what brought them. And thank God, if you watch the tape, there were nasty comments they make for their readiness to sacrifice all they had for and on behalf of Yoruba nation for the murder of Chief M.K.O. Abiola. You could see the bitterness. They went in. Soon after they came out, and that's why I videotaped it. The comments, the attitude, the mood changed. They were clapping hands and chatting and yelling or within themselves. And then I thank God, one of the correspondents in the presidency, there were many correspondents who were colleagues at that time, if you can check back to history. Even local news covered it, but I covered my own deliberately and differently for many reasons. Because I wanted to keep the data right, because things were not going right at that time. And what did they say when they were asked? They said, Mopadoko, the matter of M.K.O. Abiola is gone. We are going to forge ahead. That is no longer an issue. This man was killed a few hours ago. This is the man you claim to be fighting in Nadeko. This is the man you claim to be our mentor. This is the last Oreona can come for. And you just go on some few minutes meeting and came out and say it's a foregone issue, that is not the matter at the moment, that it is no longer an issue, that you are going to forge ahead. How? How can this happen? What sense does this make? And now, because I'm talking of the same man, now I'm an enemy? This is what I'm talking about. If I hadn't any video collection, if I don't have the documents that brought about the money from Central Bank, you can call me names, but I have them.
So you have video of all this?
I have video of that visit.
Do you have video evidence of them giving these people money?
Inside the villa?
Yes.
Houses, they even went to Lagos, house to house, and money was shared. I refer you to 2001 and 2002, Gani Adams interview. And I ask you one fundamental question. If late Chief M.K.O.
He also disagreed with Femi Falana, senior advocate of Nigeria, who makes some comments recently stating that Falana knew nothing of the events that took place and he should therefore stop speaking like he knows. In the video, Mustafa made claims to possessing video evidence which shows some Nadeko leaders when they came to Aso Rock to collect money. He added that he was framed for Kudirat Abiola's murder and that those who testified against him did it after receiving sentence. After the June 12, 1993 presidential election was annulled by the military government, Moshood Kashimawo Olawale Abiola did not accept the cancellation of the results. On June 11, 1994, exactly 1 year after the election, Abiola publicly declared himself the rightful president of Nigeria. This was based on the official results showing he had won the election with a majority.
He said the results were already unknown. I won.
Evolved. This declaration intensified the political crisis in Nigeria. Supporters of Abiola across the country began organizing protests and civil disobedience campaigns. These included public demonstrations, sit-ins, and labor strikes aimed at pressuring the military government to recognize the election outcome and hand over power. The movement calling for the recognition of Abiola's mandate became widespread, involving political parties, labor unions, students groups, and civil society organizations. Many Nigerians saw Abiola's declaration as a legitimate stand against military interference in the democratic process. In response, the military government led by General Sani Abacha cracked down on the pro-democracy movement. Security forces arrested hundreds of activists, political leaders, and journalists suspected of supporting Abiola's claim. Many detainees faced harsh prison conditions conditions, and there were reports of intimidation and suppression of opposition voices. The political environment became increasingly tense, with restrictions on the media, bans on public gatherings, and censorship material supporting Abiola's presidency. Internationally, the annulment of the June 12 election and Abiola's subsequent detention drew condemnation from government, human rights organizations, and international bodies. The United States, the United Kingdom, and the European Union publicly criticized the Nigerian military government for rejecting the election results and imprisoning Abiola. The United Nations and the Organization of African Unity (OAU) issued statements urging the Nigerian authorities to respect the will of the people and to release detained political prisoners. Several countries imposed diplomatic sanctions, including suspension of aid programs and reduction in official visits. These actions were intended to pressure the military regime to return Nigeria to civil rule and acknowledge Abiola's electoral victory. Despite these pressures, the military government maintained its position, refusing to recognize Abiola as president and continuing his detention without trial. Throughout this period, Abiola remained in custody, isolated from public view, while the movement for his recognition persisted both inside Nigeria and among the Nigerian diaspora worldwide. The struggle for recognition was a pivotal chapter in Nigeria's political history. It highlighted the tension between military rule and the popular demand for democracy, setting the stage for eventual political changes that would come later in the decade. This period also underscored the role of international advocacy in supporting democratic movements in countries under authoritarian regimes. Following years of military rule and political unrest, Nigeria began a formal process to return to civilian governance in the late 1990s. This process gained momentum after the death of General Sani Abacha in June 1998, who had ruled Nigeria since 1993 following the annulled June 12 election. After Abacha's sudden death, General Abdulsalam Abubakar took over as head of state and initiated the transition program aimed at restoring democratic rule. He set a timetable for the transfer of power from military to civilian leadership within a year. Under Abubakar's administration, a new constitution was prepared, political parties were registered, and electoral processes were organized to ensure credible election. On February 27, 1999, Nigeria held presidential elections, marking the first democratic election since the annulled 1993 poll. Olusegun Obasanjo, a former military head of state who had voluntarily stepped down in 1979, ran as the candidate of the People's Democratic Party (PDP). Obasanjo won the presidential election, was sworn in on May 29, 1999, officially marking the end of the military dictatorship and the beginning of Nigeria's fourth republic. The events surrounding the 1993 election pressured subsequent governments to improve electoral transparency and uphold democratic principles. The June 12 became a reference point for advocates of democracy and governance reform in Nigeria. In the years following the transition, Nigeria experienced multiple democratic elections, with June 12 commemorated by many as fundamental moments in the country's ongoing democratic development. For nearly 2 decades after Nigeria's return to civilian rule in 1999, May 29 was officially observed as Democracy Day. This date was chosen because it marked the swearing-in of President Olusegun Obasanjo, signaling the end of military governance and the beginning of the Fourth Republic. Over time, civil society organizations, regional governments, particularly in the Southwest, human rights activists, and political commentators consistently called for national recognition of June 12 as a real Democracy Day. The push gained renewed national attention during President Muhammadu Buhari's administration. On June 6, 2018, President Buhari announced that the federal government had decided to move Nigeria's official Democracy Day from May 29 to June 12. He stated that the decision was meant to recognize the significance of the 1993 election and honor the memory of those who fought for democracy during the military era. He also announced that M.K.O. Abiola would be posthumously awarded the Ground Commander of the Federal Republic (GCFR), Nigeria's highest national honor, which is traditionally reserved for presidents and heads of state. In June 2019, Nigeria officially observed June 12 as Democracy Day nationwide for the first time. All official government ceremonies, including the presidential address, parades, and national commemorations, were shifted from May 29 to June 12. The memory of June 12 serves as a reminder of what citizens can achieve when unified by purpose. Recognizing and studying June 12 is not just about honoring a past victory or mourning a lost opportunity. It is a constant reference to the responsibilities of leadership, the vigilance required by electorates, and the importance of civic participation in the democratic process. Thanks for watching us today and for joining us on our journey of enlightenment. Morganable, your vehicle of enlightenment.